Hello and welcome back to Archetype Builds. This is our kind of miscellaneous deep dive on the Playtest 7 document, looking at spells changed, weapon mastery changes, weapons in general, and rules changes. Probably the most significant change in the entire playtest document we are going to be talking about right here is the Counterspell change. Counterspell now requires the target to make a Constitution saving throw rather than spells that are lower level or equal levels for the Counterspell, and requiring you to make a roll to counter them. So the onus on preventing the Counterspell has been taken from you to your target. There's also some protection on the damages inflicted by Counterspell. Yes, the person casting the spell no longer gets to cast it. They've wasted the action they've taken to cast that spell. But the spell slot that they were using is not expended if it's countered. So you have merely delayed the onset of that spell. The good news is this is now sort of equivalent to all spell levels, more so than in the past. There's no gamble to targeting the high-level spells and going like, I'm going to prioritize countering those. You know, in the past, right, like levels 1, 2, and 3 were automatically canceled for Counterspell. They are also going to be Constitution saving throws, so you might as well hold out for the big spells. Arcane Eruption has been boosted. It no longer requires a Constitution saving throw. It is now a Dexterity saving throw, so that's good. Jump is going to give you a bonus. It allows you to jump up to 30 feet by only spending 10 feet of your own movement. So you do need some movement speed to use jump, but now you can make better use of it and bound around like a grasshopper. Which is exactly what that spell was supposed to be. Sorcerous Burst has increased its damage die from a d6 to a d8. The trade-off there is it does still explode on the highest value, so an 8 is less likely on a d8 than a 6 is on a d6, but the base damage increases by 1, right, because you're increasing the size of the damage die. On average, this works out to a boost. They've also put in, I'm not sure if it was there before, a limit on the number of times you can explode or roll again if you get the highest value. It's up to your spellcasting ability modifier now, which I don't know why they needed that, but I guess it's just to make the gameplay easier. So now kind of the fun part of Sorcerous Burst, which is that you keep exploding and adding up damage, is gone, but it's probably a little bit better of a spell overall. Also worth noting in this that the Eldritch Blast and Hex spells, which had changes in Playtest 5, are reverted to their original versions, which means Eldritch Blast is still going to scale with character level rather than with Warlock level. I am at this point convinced that Wizard of the Coast wants Warlocks to be the most dipped class. They've also streamlined the ability score improvement feat. There's no longer ability score improvement as like a separate thing, it's a feat. In the previous versions there was improvements for all kinds of things. Now it's just prerequisite level 4, and then you can either choose 1 to increase by 2 or choose 2 to increase by 1. Can't increase over 20. So that is probably a simpler way to write that. The big note on weapons is that flex is just gone. So there's no more flex weapon mastery. I have always been saying that more of these options would be better, and then it would be better if lots of these weapons had 2 mastery properties and you simply unlocked one of them for that purpose. Fighter's ability to choose one when it attacked was like a great way of playing on that. They've mostly replaced flex with sap, which gives the opponent disadvantage on their next attack roll. I guess that's fine. The heavy property has changed from being size-based to being strength-based, which makes sense. Your strength is kind of the proxy for whether or not you can lift up a big heavy weapon. It just makes size even less of a meaningful change between characters. The only design note on the rules glossary section is that the death saving throws section has been removed. I don't know what that means in terms of what we're going with for future of the OneD&D playtest. I don't know, because all of those other previous rule changes have been preserved here. So I don't know if this is defaulting back to 2014 or if it is some new thing that they are working on. But most of these rule changes have been preserved and reprinted here in the glossary. To best of my reading, very few of these are changed in any meaningful way. I only spent about an hour and a half looking through it. I'm sure other people will spend longer and pick up on little changes. So with those little odds and ends taken care of, maybe I can give a little bit of an overview on what I've seen from Playtest 7. In general, the things that I am frustrated about tend to be things that are left out, or that were not proceeded with, right? Changes that I wanted to see happen that aren't going to end up happening. I really wanted to see some new changes to weapon masteries that didn't end up going through. I really wanted to see, certain changes to classes stick and be more refined, and those just seem to be reverted. But the changes that are here seem to be really good, especially in the Warlock when looking at the indications, when looking at the subclasses. Those are very good. The new Sorcerer, I think, is really exciting. I am a fan of the new features that they've added to Fighter, although frustrated that they've left out some of the cooler parts of using 2 weapon masteries that they used to have. And I think the Barbarian overall buffed, and the Wizard is probably in the place that it should be. To a certain extent, I think we are settling in this playtest process on a very minimally changed version of the game. I saw on Reddit, on a couple different places, people essentially saying, if this version of the rules is free, that is to say, if you can just log on to D&D Beyond and your version of the Player's Handbook already includes these changes, if you can pick up an online PDF of these changes for free, there's really no reason not to switch over to the new version of the rules, right? Most of these are generally improvements, and a lot of the original game is preserved. There will be some learning curve in trying to get your players up to speed on what the new rules are, but in general, the new rules service better the playing of the game from the DM's and the player's perspective. And I'm starting to agree with that sentiment. I think, in general, a lot of these OneD&D changes are so exciting, I kind of want to move forward with playing them in my games already. I've already started playing in my games without magical damage and boosting enemy hit points when they have resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. I have already started, kind of looking at some of these subclass changes and offering them to players and saying, if you want to play the OneD&D version of this subclass, feel free to do so. I do think that there is a transition period that will need to happen, and not all people are going to feel that that is worthwhile. But in general, I think a lot of these changes are addressing key pain points of the community. And I think it's probably headed in a good but not great direction. Thanks, guys. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from YouTube after these series of playtest videos. Hoping to come back and finish my class ranking series, finish getting a couple of OneD&D archetype builds out there, and we will see where we go with the channel from there. Thanks, everyone.